It's Mike Walt from LM3. Today I'm going to go over mining the database for setting thresholds, score thresholds for inspection. So in this case I'm going to go into the options right through the operational program and the inspection setup. Keep in mind that this stops production, so you can run the inspection setup standalone if you want to do it in parallel to production. But what I want to do is go into manage calibrations. So this is called the inspection wizard. I'm going to go into manage calibrations, and in this case this is a 10-step mold inspection process. Since each one of the images is slightly different than the other and they all use a single detector, there's a calibration set up for each one of the steps. So to demonstrate here, I'm just going to work in step 1. So go ahead and double click step 1. And then this will show me all the thresholds that are set, which are all set to 90% right now with a 20% global threshold. So I'm going to go ahead and query the database. I need to select an actual object first. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all the objects except for the center, which is more of a reference object. And I'm going to go ahead and select the last days of results for the PSSS part number. And then I'm going to select step 1 since we're working in step 1. Go ahead and hit OK. It'll mine the results and it's going to present to us all of the objects that scored above 20% in order of lowest score. So this is the lowest scoring object in the last day for the top right object and step 1. You can see that up here in that top right area there's lots of shorts, so I'm going to go ahead and scroll. There's some empties, lots of bad parts here, so just keep on arrowing through the images. I can go backward or forward, so I'm going to go forward until I find the transition to the good parts, and you can see that the score is going up as I'm scrolling through. So just keep going here until we get to a good one. Okay, so these look good. So we're going to go back until we kind of get the threshold point, which I'm calling here. Now this is something that really quality should be involved with, but this area looks good. So now we're stopped at 99.85%, and when I stop this program it's going to push that threshold into the top right object. So now the top right object scores set to that value. And the program goes on to the next, which is the bottom right in this case. So I go through the same process of just scrolling through until I find the transition to the good parts. Bad part, bad part. Remember, we're looking at the bottom right area. So it's still bad. Oh, the parts are starting to get good now, so back up a little bit. I'm going to stop there. That's going to set the threshold to the threshold on that particular inspection, or the score certainty on that particular inspection. Now we're on to the bottom left. So I'll repeat this process again for the 4 regions that we have separated off. Oh, these parts are good. So back up until I get to the point in which they transitioned. Now that sets the threshold for that object or that area. And then we're going to finish off with the last one, which is the top left. There's lots of empties in this case. So we'll keep going until we get to the transition. which I'm going to call there, and I'm going to stop. But before doing so, I want to go over the save and the save all function. So if I hit save, I can go ahead and just create a folder. I'm working in the training directory. So create a new folder. Call this, the period in which I did my search. So 11/11 to 11/12/22. Actually, I want to also name this by the step and the object, which is the top left. So if I put that in this, choose that as the current folder, go to my file system, and that folder, you'll see that there's just a single image that I was on. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this off because I'm going to do the save all, which is going to go ahead and do the same thing but take all the images with their labels for all images that scored under this threshold. So if I go back to the file system, that same folder, you'll see that I have a number of images, including the empties. So everything that scored under this threshold. And what I'll do is use these later for training the detector more. These are the items of most interest, the ones that are bad. So now if I stop this, it'll set the thresholds. So I can have all my thresholds set. And I'll need to save to store these. If I don't save, they're not going to get stored. So make sure you save if that's what you want to set in as the thresholds. So I'm going to go over some other features here. So if I mine for last day of results, step 1 for the top left object, and go ahead and just scroll again until I find the transition. Okay, here's the transition. Go back until I find the exact transition. Okay, so right there, transitioned into good parts. If I hit the find failures, what's going to do is allow me to search across a date range using that threshold, and it'll show me any of the images that failed or scored underneath that threshold. So this gives me a way of taking a look at other time periods to see if there's going to be false failures. So if I go from the 9th to the 10th, so the day before we're currently looking at, and hit OK, this tells me there's none. There's none in the previous day that score less than that threshold. So I'm going to get out of here, and I know for a fact that there's some in the top right area. So I'll go ahead and close out of that, and then I'm going to choose the top right object. Last day of results, PSS part number, and step 1. Hit OK. And then go ahead and scroll through these images until I hit the threshold. Almost there. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and find failures across a different time period. So custom date range. So the 9th to the 10th. Actually to the 11th. So I'm doing 2 days in this case. So 2 days worth shows me that there would be 3 failures over the course of those days. So this allows me to take a look and say, are these false failures? Are these good parts? And the quantity down below at the right will tell me how many parts I would have failed at these thresholds. And these all look marginal, so I think you would have had maybe 1 false failure in the mix. So that's it. That's how you use the tools to figure out your best thresholds if it's not done automatically through the training process.